Hinduism does not have a single founder or a specific starting date, making it one of the oldest living religious traditions in the world. Its roots are often traced back to the Indus Valley Civilization, a sophisticated urban culture that flourished around 3300 BCE. While we cannot read their script, their symbols, such as depictions of seated figures that resemble later images of Shiva and reverence for sacred animals, hint at spiritual ideas that would later become part of the Hindu fabric. This ancient civilization provides the soil from which the great banyan tree of Hindu thought began to sprout. Its earliest expressions woven into the very landscape of the Indian subcontinent, a testament to a spirituality that arose organically from the people and their environment. The story then shifts with the arrival of nomadic pastoral people known as the Aryans, who migrated into the Indian subcontinent around 1500 BCE. They brought with them their own language, Sanskrit, and a rich oral tradition of hymns and rituals. This tradition formed the basis of the Vedas, the earliest sacred texts of Hinduism. Their spirituality was deeply connected to the forces of nature, which they personified as gods and goddesses, or devas. They worshipped deities like Indra, the god of thunder and rain; Agni, the god of fire who acted as a messenger between humans and the gods; and Surya, the sun god. Their relationship with these divine forces was transactional, maintained through elaborate fire sacrifices called yajnas. These early Vedic rituals were not performed in temples, but in open spaces, around a specially constructed fire altar. The purpose of the yajna was to maintain cosmic order, known as Rita, and to seek blessings from the gods for prosperity, long life, and victory in battle. Priests, known as Brahmins, meticulously memorized and chanted the Vedic hymns, believing that the precise utterance of these sacred sounds had immense power to influence the universe. This period, known as the Vedic Age, laid the foundational layer of Hindu practice and belief, emphasizing ritual, the power of sacred speech, mantra, and a deep-seated connection between the human world and the divine cosmos, a worldview centered on balance and cosmic harmony. The focus was on the here and now, on living a full and prosperous life in this world. The gods were powerful, but could be persuaded through offerings and correct ritual performance. The idea was to create a positive relationship with the cosmos, ensuring that rains would come, crops would grow, and society would thrive. This early form of the religion was less about individual salvation and more about collective well-being. It was a worldview that saw the divine woven into every aspect of existence, from the crackling of the sacrificial fire to the storms that swept across the plains, establishing a spiritual grammar that would be expanded upon and reinterpreted for millennia to come. As centuries passed, the simple, ritual-focused religion of the early Vedic period began to evolve. A growing number of thinkers and sages started to question the ultimate meaning behind the elaborate yajnas. This shift marked the beginning of what is often called the Brahmanical period. The focus slowly moved from the external performance of the ritual to the internal understanding of its significance. The Brahmins, who were the custodians of the rituals, began to compile texts that explained the complex symbolism and philosophical underpinnings of the sacrifices. These texts, known as the Brahmanas, acted as detailed manuals, but also as bridges, connecting the outer act of worship to a deeper inner spiritual reality. This intellectual ferment gave rise to a profound new set of teachings found in the Upanishads, which were composed between 800 and 200 BCE. The Upanishads represent a major turning point in Hindu thought. They are essentially philosophical dialogues between teachers, gurus, and students, exploring profound questions about the nature of reality, the self, and the universe. Instead of focusing on pleasing external gods for worldly gains, the sages of the Upanishads turned their gaze inward. They sought to understand the ultimate singular reality that underlies all of existence, a concept they called Brahman. This was no longer about many gods, but about one all-pervading, formless, and eternal principle. The post-Vedic era, sometimes called the classical Hindu period, saw these philosophical ideas merge with popular devotional practices. The abstract concept of a formless Brahman was made more accessible to ordinary people through the stories and worship of personal gods and goddesses. This is the period when the great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, were composed and gained immense popularity. These stories were not just grand adventures, but also vehicles for teaching complex philosophical and ethical ideas in a relatable narrative form. The focus on temple worship, devotional singing, bhajans, and the worship of images, Murti Puja, grew, creating a rich and diverse tapestry of religious expression. This evolution from ritual to philosophy, and then to devotion, shows the remarkable adaptability of Hinduism. It did not discard the old ideas, but rather built upon them, creating new layers of meaning. The fire sacrifice of the Vedas was not forgotten. It was internalized as the fire of knowledge that burns away ignorance. The gods of the Vedas were not abandoned. They were integrated into a larger pantheon, often seen as different manifestations of the one supreme reality. This ability to absorb, reinterpret, and grow is a key characteristic of the tradition, allowing it to remain relevant and vibrant through changing times and for diverse populations with different spiritual needs. The sacred texts of Hinduism form a vast and diverse library, composed over thousands of years. They are broadly divided into two categories: Shruti, that which is heard, and Smriti, that which is remembered. Shruti texts are considered divinely revealed and eternal, without a human author. The most important of these are the four Vedas: media group, close-up of Sanskrit verses on palm leaf manuscript, Vedic hymn recitation in an old temple, ancient Vedic text with traditional script at stock at distribute _equally, the Rig Veda, the Samaveda, the Yajurveda, and the Atharva Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest, a collection of over 1,000 hymns of praise to various deities. The Samaveda contains melodies for chanting these hymns. The Yajurveda provides the prose mantras for the sacrificial rituals, and the Atharva Veda includes spells, charms, and hymns for healing and daily life. Attached to the Vedas are later layers of text that expand upon their meaning. The Brahmanas, as mentioned, are prose commentaries that explain the mechanics and symbolism of the Vedic rituals. The Aranyakas, or forest texts, were composed by hermits who had retreated from society, and they explored the more mystical aspects of these rituals. Finally, the Upanishads, or Vedanta, meaning the end of the Vedas, contain the core philosophical teachings of Hinduism. They shift the focus from external rites to internal knowledge, introducing the foundational concepts of Brahman, the ultimate reality, and Atman, the individual soul, and the idea that the two are ultimately one and the same. The second category of scripture is Smriti, which includes texts composed by human authors that are remembered and passed down. While considered less authoritative than Shruti, Smriti texts are immensely popular and influential in the daily lives of Hindus. This category includes the great epics, media group, illustrated pages of Ramayana and Mahabharata, epic manuscripts side by side, hands turning pages of Hindu epics at stock at distribute _equally, the Ramayana, and the Mahabharata. The Ramayana tells the story of Rama, an incarnation of Vishnu, and his quest to rescue his wife Sita, serving as a powerful lesson in dharma, duty, and righteousness. The Mahabharata, one of the longest poems in the world, is an epic tale of a dynastic struggle, but embedded within it is the Bhagavad Gita, a profound dialogue between the warrior Arjuna and his charioteer Krishna, who reveals himself as God. Completing this library are the Puranas, which means tales of ancient times. These texts are rich with myths, legends, and genealogies of gods, goddesses, kings, and sages. There are 18 major Puranas, and they are crucial for popularizing the stories of deities like Vishnu, Shiva, and Devi, the goddess. They describe cosmology, history, and geography, and provide detailed instructions for temple worship, festivals, and pilgrimages. Together, this vast collection of scriptures, from the abstract philosophy of the Upanishads to the engaging stories of the epics and Puranas, provides a comprehensive guide to Hindu thought, ethics, and practice, catering to different intellectual and emotional needs. At the heart of Hindu philosophy lies a set of core beliefs that provide a framework for understanding life, the universe, and one's place within it. The most fundamental concept is Brahman, the ultimate, unchanging reality that is the source of all existence. Brahman is described as infinite, eternal, and formless, beyond all human conception and language. It is the single unifying principle that permeates everything in the cosmos. While Brahman is the universal spirit, Atman is the individual soul or self. The great insight of the Upanishads is that Atman is not separate from Brahman. The individual soul is, in its essence, identical to the universal spirit. The goal of life is to realize this truth. This realization is hindered by the cycle of samsara, the continuous process of birth, death, and rebirth. Life is not seen as a one-time event, but as a long journey of the soul through many different bodies and forms. This journey is governed by the law of karma, which is the principle of cause and effect. Every action, thought, and word a person generates has a corresponding consequence that will be experienced either in this life or in a future one. Good actions lead to positive outcomes and a better rebirth, while negative actions lead to suffering and a less favorable rebirth. Karma is not a system of reward and punishment from a divine judge, but an impersonal, natural law of the universe. Guiding one's actions within this cycle is the concept of dharma. Dharma is a rich and complex term that can be translated as duty, righteousness, ethics, or cosmic law. It refers to the moral and social obligations that a person must fulfill in their life. Dharma is not the same for everyone. It depends on one's age, gender, social position, and stage of life. Living in accordance with one's dharma is essential for accumulating good karma and maintaining social and cosmic order. The epics, like the Ramayana, are essentially grand explorations of the complexities of dharma, showing how difficult but necessary it is to follow the righteous path, even in the face of great adversity. The ultimate goal of this entire spiritual journey is moksha, which means liberation or release. Moksha is the soul's freedom from the endless cycle of samsara. It is achieved when an individual fully realizes the true nature of the self, Atman, and its oneness with the ultimate reality, Brahman. This realization dissolves the ego and extinguishes the karmic debts that bind the soul to reincarnation. Attaining moksha is the end of suffering and the achievement of a state of absolute peace, knowledge, and bliss. These concepts, Brahman, Atman, samsara, karma, dharma, and moksha, form the philosophical backbone of Hinduism, shaping a worldview where every life has profound meaning and ultimate purpose. While Hindu philosophy, speaks of one formless, ultimate reality called Brahman, Hindu practice is actually rich with the worship of numerous gods and goddesses. Now, this might seem like a contradiction at first, but it's really resolved by understanding that these many deities are just different manifestations or personal forms of the one supreme Brahman. They make the abstract concept of God accessible, relatable, and honestly, much more approachable for the human heart and mind. Worshippers can form a personal, loving relationship with a chosen deity, seeing them as a guide, protector, or even a parent. This, in turn, allows for a diversity of spiritual paths, since different people are naturally drawn to different aspects of the divine. Among the most prominent deities is the Trimurti, a trinity of three gods who represent the cosmic functions of creation, preservation, and destruction. Brahma is the creator, who brings the universe into being. Though he is a key figure in cosmology, it's interesting that he is not widely worshipped today. Vishnu is the preserver, the one who maintains cosmic order and righteousness, what we call dharma. He is a beloved deity, known for his compassion and his intervention in the world whenever there is a crisis. Shiva is the destroyer, but his destruction isn't negative. Instead, it's a necessary act of dissolution that makes way for new creation. He is also seen as the supreme ascetic, the lord of yoga and meditation. Alongside the male gods, the divine feminine, or Shakti, is worshipped in many forms as the goddess, often called Devi. She is seen as the active energy and power of the universe, without whom the male gods are basically inert. She is worshipped as the gentle and benevolent Parvati, the consort of Shiva, as Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity and the consort of Vishnu, and as Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, music, and the arts, the consort of Brahma. The goddess also has fierce, protective forms, such as Durga, the warrior goddess who slays demons, and Kali, the embodiment of time and change who destroys evil to liberate her devotees. A key concept related to Vishnu is that of avatars, which are his descents or incarnations on earth. Whenever Dharma declines and evil rises, Vishnu manifests in a physical form to restore balance. It is traditionally said that he has 10 principal avatars. The most famous of these are Rama, the hero of the Ramayana, who is seen as the model of the perfect king and a follower of Dharma. And Krishna, the central figure of the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, who is a multifaceted deity, worshipped as a playful child, a divine lover, and a wise spiritual teacher. These avatars bring the divine into human history, making God's presence tangible and his teachings accessible through some truly compelling stories. Hindu worship, or puja, is a deeply personal and multi-sensory experience, designed to establish a connection between the devotee and the divine. It can be performed in a grand temple or at a simple home altar. Central to puja is the practice of darshan, which means seeing. The devotee goes to see the image, or murti, of the deity, and in turn, to be seen by the deity. The murti is not just a statue. It is considered a consecrated vessel that holds the divine presence. The worship involves making offerings to the deity, engaging all five senses: flowers and incense for smell, food or prasad for taste, the ringing of a bell for hearing, viewing the image for sight, and applying sacred paste for touch. Rituals play a significant role in Hindu life, from daily practices to major life cycle ceremonies called samskaras. The ancient Vedic fire ritual, or yajna, continues to be performed on special occasions like weddings and housewarmings, symbolizing purification and the offering of oneself to the divine. Another powerful form of worship is the chanting of mantras. A mantra is a sacred sound, word, or phrase, typically in Sanskrit, that is believed to have spiritual power. The most famous mantra is Om, which is considered the primordial sound of the universe. Repetitive chanting, or japa, helps to focus the mind, purify the consciousness, and invoke the presence of a specific deity. Pilgrimage or yatra is another important devotional practice. Hindus travel to sacred places such as holy rivers like the Ganges, mountains, or temples associated with particular gods, or events from mythology. These journeys are seen as acts of devotion that purify the pilgrim of negative karma and bring them closer to moksha. Famous pilgrimage sites include the city of Varanasi on the banks of the Ganges, the Char Dham, or 4 holy sites in the Himalayas, and cities associated with the life of Krishna, like Vrindavan. The physical journey is symbolic of the inner spiritual journey toward the divine, a process of leaving behind worldly concerns to focus on God. Beyond ritual and pilgrimage, Hinduism offers paths of inner discipline for spiritual growth, most notably through meditation and yoga. Meditation involves training the mind to achieve a state of deep concentration and stillness, allowing the practitioner to move beyond ordinary thoughts and experience a higher state of consciousness. Yoga, which means to yoke or to unite, is a holistic system of physical postures, or asanas, breathing exercises, or pranayama, and meditation designed to unite the mind, body, and spirit. The ultimate goal of these practices is not just physical health, but self-realization, the direct experience of the oneness of the Atman with Brahman. Hindu life is punctuated by a vibrant calendar of festivals that celebrate mythology, the seasons, and the core values of the faith. These festivals are not just religious holidays, but are deeply woven into the social and cultural fabric, bringing families and communities together in joyous celebration. They are occasions for renewing faith, feasting, and expressing devotion through colorful rituals, music, and dance. Each festival has its own unique stories and customs, but they all share a common thread of celebrating the victory of good over evil, light over darkness, and knowledge over ignorance, reflecting the central themes of Hindu philosophy. Perhaps the most well-known Hindu festival is Diwali, the Festival of Lights, which is celebrated over 5 days in the autumn. The main theme of Diwali is the triumph of light over darkness. Homes are decorated with clay lamps, or diyas, and colorful patterns on the floor called rangoli. The light symbolizes the inner light that protects from spiritual darkness. For many, it celebrates the return of Rama to his kingdom after defeating the demon king Ravana, as told in the Ramayana. It is also a time when people worship Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, seeking her blessings for the coming year. Families gather, exchange gifts and sweets, and celebrate with fireworks. Another major festival is Holi, which takes place in the spring and is known as the Festival of Colors. Holi celebrates the arrival of spring and the victory of good over evil, commemorating the story of the devotee Prahlada, who was saved from a fire by his unwavering faith in Vishnu. The festival begins the night before with a large bonfire, symbolizing the burning away of evil spirits. The next day, people joyously throw colored powders and water at each other in the streets, breaking down social barriers of age, status, and gender. It is a day of fun, forgiveness, and new beginnings, filled with laughter and camaraderie. Other important festivals include Navaratri, a 9-night festival dedicated to the worship of the goddess Devi in her various forms, culminating in a celebration of her victory over the buffalo demon Mahishasura. In South India, Pongal is a 4-day harvest festival, giving thanks to the sun god, nature, and farm animals for a bountiful harvest. Raksha Bandhan is a festival that celebrates the bond between brothers and sisters, where a sister ties a sacred thread, or rakhi, on her brother's wrist as a symbol of her love and prayers for his well-being, and he in turn promises to protect her. These and many other festivals mark the passage of time, enrich community life, and keep the ancient stories and spiritual values alive. The Hindu social structure has historically been associated with the caste system, a complex and often controversial topic. The ancient texts describe a theoretical social framework called the Varna system, which means color or class. This system divides society into 4 broad categories based on occupation and aptitude. The Brahmins were the priests, scholars, and teachers. The Kshatriyas were the warriors, rulers, and administrators. The Vaishyas were the merchants, farmers, and artisans. And the Shudras were the laborers and service providers. The purpose of this system, in theory, was to create a stable and interdependent society where everyone had a defined role and contributed to the whole. Over time, this idealized Varna system evolved into a much more rigid and complex social hierarchy known as the Jati system. Jati, which means birth, refers to thousands of distinct social groups, often linked to a traditional occupation. Unlike the Varna system, which was theoretically based on one's qualities, Jati became strictly hereditary. This system led to deep social stratification and discrimination, particularly against groups considered untouchable or Dalit, who were placed outside the 4 Varna framework and assigned tasks considered impure. While the Indian Constitution outlawed caste-based discrimination in 1950, its social and cultural legacy continues to influence society, though its rigidity has significantly weakened in modern urban India. Parallel to this social framework, Hinduism developed a rich tradition of philosophical inquiry, organized into 6 classical schools of thought, or darshanas, which means perspectives. These schools aim to provide a logical framework for understanding reality and achieving moksha. The 6 schools are Nyaya, which focuses on logic and reasoning; Vaisheshika, an atomist school that analyzes the nature of the physical world; Samkhya, which presents a dualistic worldview of consciousness, or Purusha and matter, or Prakriti; Yoga, which builds on Samkhya philosophy, but adds the concept of God and provides a practical path of discipline to achieve liberation. The final 2 schools, Mimamsa and Vedanta, are directly based on the Vedas. Purva Mimamsa focuses on the correct interpretation of the ritualistic portions of the Vedas, emphasizing the importance of Dharma. Uttara Mimamsa, more commonly known as Vedanta, is the most influential of the 6 schools. It focuses on the philosophical teachings of the Upanishads and explores the nature of Brahman, Atman, and their relationship. Within Vedanta, there are further sub-schools, such as Advaita Vedanta, or non-dualism, which posits the absolute oneness of Atman and Brahman, and Dvaita Vedanta, or dualism, which maintains a distinction between the soul, God, and the world. These philosophical traditions showcase the immense intellectual depth of Hinduism. Today, Hinduism is the world's 3rd largest religion, with over 1 billion followers. The vast majority live in India, Nepal, and Mauritius, but a significant global diaspora has spread Hindu communities across the globe, from North America and the United Kingdom to Southeast Asia and Africa. In the modern era, Hinduism has demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability. It is not a monolithic faith with a central authority like a pope. Instead, it is a family of diverse traditions, allowing for a wide range of interpretations and practices that can coexist and evolve in response to contemporary challenges. The spread of Hinduism to the West began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, largely through the efforts of influential spiritual teachers like Swami Vivekananda. He presented Hinduism at the 1893 Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, emphasizing its universal philosophical principles, such as the divinity of the soul and the harmony of religions. He presented Vedanta not just as a religion, but as a science of consciousness that could be compatible with modern rational thought. Later, gurus popularized practices like yoga and meditation, which have been widely adopted in the West, often detached from their religious roots, but still carrying the essence of Hindu spiritual discipline. In the face of modernity, Hinduism has engaged in significant reform movements. Thinkers and leaders from the 19th century onwards challenged social evils that had become associated with their religion, such as the rigidity of the caste system, the practice of sati, or widow immolation, and child marriage. They advocated for a return to the high philosophical ideals of the Upanishads and a more rational, humane interpretation of the faith. These reform movements have helped Hinduism to navigate the complexities of the modern world, encouraging education, social equality, and women's rights while preserving its spiritual core. Ultimately, Hinduism can be seen as an eternal river, Sanatana Dharma, continuously flowing and changing course while its waters remain sourced from the ancient springs of the Vedas. Its core message is one of tolerance and pluralism, encapsulated in the Rigvedic verse, "Truth is one, but the wise call it by many names. It offers a worldview that seeks harmony between the material and spiritual, the individual and the cosmos. It teaches that there are many paths to the same ultimate reality, respecting the diversity of human belief. In a world often torn by conflict, this enduring message of finding unity in diversity and living a life guided by Dharma, compassion, and the quest for self-knowledge remains profoundly relevant.
Ready for a history adventure? Join our community. Subscribe to World History, smash that like, share with friends, and drop your thoughts below. Let's make history together. See you in the comments.